Yeah, I work with the Assemblies of God in America, partnering with the Assemblies of God in Great Britain, and we're planting a church in Cardiff, in the Cathays area of Cardiff. We've been doing that since, we just turned 2 years old.
So let's go before that. How did that sense of calling by God to Wales happen?
Well, it would take quite a while to explain the whole thing, but just, sometimes you hear stories about people telling about their calling to a certain mission, and there might be involved some goosebump stories, what I call goosebump stories, those miraculous things that God brings together. We had those. We're not the type of people to have a goosebump experience and then chuck everything and sell our house and move across the ocean. So we just kind of set those aside for a moment and realized that God was doing something, but let's just wait for God to bring fruit to that. And he did through our connections, through bringing us in contact with people. We met some key leaders over here. We knew that God was calling us to the United Kingdom to help plant churches because of a connection we had with a student. Let me back up. I'm getting ahead of myself. We did student ministry at the universities in Kansas for 10 years before coming over here. And through some connections with some students that had come from Great Britain who came as secular humanists and who left as believers in Jesus Christ to come back to Great Britain. Through those connections, God called us over here. Through connections with some key leaders, helped place us to the need in Wales.
So how did that start? Did you turn up on your own? Did you turn up with family? Did you turn up with team around you?
First time or when we moved?
When you moved.
Well, it was just, it was our family. We had a member of our organization who was kind of in charge of operations for Northern Europe, who was based in Cardiff. He and his family took part. And then we had another person, Christy Alexander, who was with us. So we had a team of all of these very American people in the midst of Wales trying to understand rugby culture and other things. And we started with that team and then eventually just started making connections relationally with people in the communities, and then now we are where we are today.
Yeah, don't mention rugby for another couple of weekends. Yeah, that's why I was using the football stories, just to keep off the rugby for a bit. Biggest challenge in setting up a church then, and biggest blessing in doing that? Sort of give us a plus and a minus, if you like, of your journey so far.
The biggest encouragement is the easiest one, I think. I'd experienced some pretty humbling things, just nothing huge, but just in general, you have a certain high level of failure, and you realize that it's not up to you. If you're in ministry long enough, you realize you learn as much or more from your failures than you do your successes. And we realize that coming over here and anything we do, it's not so much what we do, it's how God blesses. And we have been relying upon God, upon His Holy Spirit, upon times of prayer, and we've just seen the fruit of that. And we're so encouraged by that God is just blessing. The biggest, there's several challenges. There's resource challenges. We find ourselves working with a lot of people who aren't Christians, who come to faith, and so finding leadership for those young believers is always tough, and raising up new leaders is always tough as well. So
you've moved around a few different buildings. You're settled now. You've got some core leaders around you. You've got a church that's meeting regularly. I know a little bit about this, but tell us what you see the future holding for you.
Well, because of our work with the missions organization and the Assemblies of God in the United States, we're required to go back to the United States periodically to raise more funds. And so we are going back in June for 12 months to do that, which is a challenge, when you plant the church and then you have to leave. But we have some leadership, some core leadership that's raised up that we'll be handing the baton off to them, and then they'll be taking it, and then we will be coming back after a year and making sure everything is going smoothly at Capital City Church. We'll dig in there for 5 or 6 months, and then our desire is to plant out of Capital City Church to another church, maybe into another part of Cardiff, or we haven't decided that yet. But our desire has never been to come and pastor a church in Wales for 30 years. Our desire has always been to raise up new churches with new local leadership in those churches. And so the next step for us is to come back and to do it all over again. So,
Fantastic, Brian. We wish you every blessing in that, and thank you for being here today. And you're going to contribute a little bit later as well. Why don't you give Bryan Elliott a big thank you. So I want to introduce you to our invited speaker for today.